when you're listening to our podcast, the glass is never half empty. It's never half full as well. It's always just completely full.
Yes, that's how I would describe our podcast.
I would like to say that my view is generally the glass is partially full.
Welcome back to All Philly All the Time. I'm Owen. This is Luke. We're going to be previewing the Philadelphia Phillies' upcoming 2025 season. How are you doing, Luke?
Oh, I'm so pumped for this season. Coming off that Eagles Super Bowl high, I'm feeling so good about this season. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know last season kind of ended in a letdown, but you know what happened 2 seasons ago for the Eagles? It ended in a letdown, and then they came back and won a championship the next year. So, Philly's got a resilient mindset. Philly is a team of underdogs. Philly is a team of comeback winners. And that's exactly what these Phillies are going to do.
That's a great point with the Eagles. I never really compared it exactly in my head. I didn't think that through, but they had a letdown in the divisional round. Just like both teams let down in the divisional round, came back and won against kind of a rival, I guess the Bucks. Like, you guys don't like. Well, you like Baker now, so never mind.
Like is a strong word. Respect is
okay. Respect
is a strong word.
That's respect. That's fair. Good
I
clarification.
admire his hustle.
The Mets, we don't like them at all. I would never admire the Mets' hustle under any circumstances.
No, agreed.
And now they added Juan Soto. So, this is a Phillies preview, not the Mets. We'll probably talk about the other teams in the division when we talk about expectations, because you got to kind of compare to the other teams in your division and your league in your like playoff standings. That affects what your expectations are for your team. But other than that, so let's jump right into it. The beginning that you gave, I was like, oh man, I agree. I'm very excited for the season. Hopefully they can bounce back, but it's getting kind of rinse and repeat. Like, we could have said that exact same line for the intro about last year when we were previewing the 2024 season. Like, it ended in heartbreak, but like, we feel really good about this year and we're excited. And it's just, we're running it back again, because the 2022 team, that was like, we wanted them to make the playoffs, but the run to the World Series was a surprise. And then after that, the expectation was the World Series, and they came up devastatingly short against the Diamondbacks. And then against the Mets, it was a premature, surprising, less devastating, more disappointing last year. Which brings us to here. Just another year where the Phillies are older and running back the same lineup, still one of the best teams in the league, but just can they get it done? So I think my overall feeling going into this season is the regular season doesn't really matter, which sucks. So I'm gonna try to spin that in a positive way of just enjoying the regular season because it doesn't matter, instead of being like apathetic towards it, being like, hey, doesn't matter, let's have fun and just make the playoffs. Because after an amazing regular season last year, Phillies win the division for the first time since 2011. We learned that it's not really worth it because you're just sad in the playoffs anyway, which is what the Braves fans have experienced recently. So we're with them now. Trying to manage expectations of, even if the regular season is great, doesn't matter too much. If it's terrible, doesn't matter too much. Obviously, as long as you make the playoffs, that's literally it. Just get in the playoffs.
Yeah. I definitely think the window is closing. I think what I think about right now, the analogy that I have in my head, if you ever watch like a cartoon and like for some reason windows don't stay open by themselves, they have to use like a stick or a piece of wood that keeps the window open from closing, and then like the character kicks out the wood and the window just like stutters and then shuts, and it shuts on somebody. It's like that's the cartoon that, the cartoon analogy. I think what I view right now is that this window is slowly closing. It's slowly starting to buckle the wood, and the wood is cracking at this point. It's not gone yet. It's starting to splinter a little bit, starting to crack a little bit. But that eventually that piece of wood's going to snap and that window is going to fall shut, because we've got an oldish team, an older team. And I mean, once some of those guys are gone, it's going to be rebuild mode, and then who knows how long it could be until we're good again.
Well, I think they have done a good job, the front office and the scouting department. Like, they have drafted well, and the farm system is average. It's not terrible. I think they've set themselves up decently to, as these older guys move on in the next couple of years. They have Aiden Miller, they have Justin Crawford coming up in the next couple of years. Andrew Painter should be up end of this year. So like there are guys to fill some spots, but the prospects are never guaranteed. So I don't think hopefully, as long as these prospects are what we expect them to be, that should keep them a bit afloat. But yeah, there will probably be a drop off. I don't think anyone's expecting Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford to come in and keep this team as a top 5 team if some of those guys leave, or just even if they're still around and they're like declining as they get older. So yeah, the top 5 team window, absolutely, not going to be around much longer, it seems. So I am excited for the prospects to come up, but at the same time, it's tough to not take these years for granted, because like what we saw with the Braves last year. The Braves were loaded, got decimated by injuries, and like still made the playoffs, missed the playoffs. Made it to that final game against the Mets, and no, I'm sorry, they did make the playoffs. They just lost so fast, I didn't remember. They lost to the Padres so quick. But yeah, like the Phillies could very easily have a season like that this year, any year, where injuries just take you out, or like something goes horribly wrong that you weren't expecting. And these past 3 years, they've been relatively healthy. Like they haven't had major setbacks with injuries, and that's lucky. Like there's not, obviously the training staff can do stuff to make it better, but like that's largely luck. And every year that you successfully don't have injuries and don't win is just another year that you're rolling the dice. You're like, well, there will probably be another chance. It just feels like it's been wasted opportunity, and can they finally do it and not waste an opportunity? So I'm an optimist. I say that because I'm an optimist most of the time. Optimist, glass half full. So I am like, we're good. We're right there. We can do it again. We just got to be a little bit better. So that's like self-talk to myself of like, well, they've been very fortunate in the past few years, but I do think that I legitimately think that they can be better this year than they were last year, in a year where they won 95 games. So let's talk about storylines here.
Absolutely.
I've got a couple. Do you want to go first, or me? We'll throw out a couple, just like storylines for people to look at going into the year. Big picture, small picture, whatever you want. My first storyline is, I think, kind of an obvious one. It's a continuing storyline. Can Johan Rojas improve as a hitter? It's been asked for the last almost 2 years now, at least a year and a half. Because when he first came up, it was like, oh, that's fine. He's a rookie. He's here for defense. We're good. And then the goal was that he would improve. And he hasn't improved as fast as we would have liked him to.
Yeah.
So this year is a huge year for Johan Rojas. Can he improve his hitting? He's been good in spring training. But I don't think any of us fully trust spring training to give us clear answers. So it would be amazing if Johan Rojas just becomes not even an average hitter. Like, an average hitter is great. That's amazing. Even if he's like a close to average hitter in this lineup with the defense that he has. He's just been a really bad hitter. They need him to improve from that.
If he can even bat like around 200, give or take a little bit, like, we would take that, because he's rarely ever above 150, I feel like.
That might be a little bit. 150 is really
150
bad,
is really low. But
he hit 243 last year.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
But his slugging numbers were awful.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
He hit 243, but his on-base percentage was sub 300. He was 279.
Yeah.
His slugging was 322, and his OPS plus was 69. So for math people, that's OPS plus is 100 is average. So he's 30 points below percentage points below the league average. So
They need to, I
yeah.
don't like, they need to, I mean, I get he is not a super big guy, probably often not going to hit for power, but
Mm-mm.
like they need to utilize that to his advantage. Teach him, well, not, I don't know, teach him, but like get him to be able to lay down successful bunts because he is so fast. If he can get a
Mm-mm.
bunt down in a good situation, that would be great. He's just got to choke and poke. Like he's just got to put something in the gap, like, and that's two bases right there. Get
Mm-hmm.
something through a hole, that's a base right there. Like he doesn't need to hit for power per se, but like getting him on base is crucial because you get him on first, he's probably going to be able to steal second, and he can go second to home so fast just on a base hit,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
think
just that's
those.
crucial.
Yeah, as somebody who has leaned more towards the analytical side of statistically bunting is bad. So I would disagree on the bunting, but other than that,
Mm,
he yeah, it would be huge his swing. I think that's what you nailed. His swing, what I've seen other people complain about is like it's too much of a power swing. He's got too much of like an uppercut. He's putting too much into it. Like if he can just get more of that slap hitter short swing to the ball, that would help him out a ton. Just putting more balls in play. And I don't know how you teach somebody this, but like the plate discipline of learning to walk more. If he could just
yeah,
walk, you don't even have to hit the ball. If you learn to not chase as much, get on base more, it's free bases basically if you can learn to walk better.
yeah.
So that would be that might be one of my my challenges for this year. Let me look at that quick. How many times did Johan Rojas walk last
Mm.
year? He walked in 363 plate appearances in 2024. Johan Rojas walked 13 times. That's worse than I
That's
expected. I thought it wasn't going to be a lot.
that's
That's like
that's
nothing.
really bad. That's yeah, that's next to nothing.
Okay, so let's say what should our goal for him be this year? If he doubles that, if he could walk 26 times this year, I
Yeah,
think I would be pretty happy with that for Johan. Um, so let's yeah,
especially
and he's
being
he's not going
lower.
to get a ton of at bats probably because the Phillies' confidence in him is waning. They added Kepler. Marsh is probably going to be
Yeah.
the primary center fielder. So yeah,
Especially with
he's
Rojas being low in the lineup, like getting on base is so crucial
yeah
for your big hitters at the top. Just number one, to be able to give them a chance. The amount of times I feel like we had a situation where there were two outs and Rojas was up and it's like, up,
yeah
inning over. But like giving those guys at the top of the lineup a chance to make something happen with a runner on base, just it makes all the difference.
yeah. You're just extending the inning.
Exactly.
Just making it harder on the pitcher, making him throw more pitches. And I guess because he is at the bottom of the order and pitchers know he's a weak hitter, like they're probably gonna throw him more strikes. I would have to look at more advanced stuff for
Yeah.
like how much was he chasing balls out of the zone. Like I'm sure pitchers throw him a lot of strikes because he's not a great hitter, but yeah, getting those walk numbers up would be huge. That I'm shocked that he walked 13 times. That's it. That's a crazy stat. I can't
Yeah,
believe that.
that is pretty
Um,
crazy.
so yeah, that's my first storyline is Johan Rojas improving at the plate.
Yeah,
Can he?
yeah. Good one. Well, I think something that we ought to look at, uh, just something that's kind of been in the media a lot and could potentially happen this season is JT Realmuto and his potential positional changes. Obviously, we've seen JT's been taking some reps in the outfield, um, but we've also added Kepler. We've also, you know, got a relatively solid outfield. What do their goal is to try and um, give him a longer career because catching can obviously be taxing. And right now we still have Stubbs back there. We also have Marchand. Um, and so in order to keep JT's bat in the lineup but give him rest, they're looking to potentially give him some outfield reps. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like the flexibility that it gives them. I'm a big fan of how open they are this spring of trying out different combinations. Harper said he's been willing to go to the outfield. Schwarber's been taking some reps at first, JT in the outfield. I like the willingness of everybody to just do whatever it takes. I don't think it's ideal for the Phillies if we get to the end of the year and JT's starting a playoff game in the outfield. Like, that means things have gone pretty bad with Rojas, Marsh, and Kepler, that JT's out there. Or that things have gone amazing with Marchand. I don't know. I don't think it's the ideal. I like putting him out there a couple times to get more for Marchand's sake than for the team right now's sake. I think it's a good future play to let Marchand get some reps and also help extend JT's career.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said. I like that, recognizing that if JT's starting in the outfield for a playoff game, that there must be something seriously wrong, or again, something seriously right. Who knows? But yeah, I think
no in between.
It's a good call for the team. JT's getting older. I don't know, is this a contract year for him, or?
Believe so.
Mm-hmm. So, depending on money and with his age, if injury occurs, might not get him back, which would be very sad. But, when you've got a young guy like Marchand, who we've seen good things from him in very minimal appearances so far, and if you can really just kind of train him up, if JT can train him up this year, that would be really important, really crucial to just letting the Phillies be able to continue that rebuild of bringing in young guys while some of the old guys are transitioning out. So I think that could be huge, and keeping JT on the field and in the lineup from an outfield perspective would be good, because he is a good leader for the team, and I think it's important that they have him out there in some capacity.
Absolutely. Yeah, his leadership seems, from what I can tell, amazing. Yeah. So that's a very interesting storyline. The JT Realmuto storyline overall, with the subcategory of where's he playing other than catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, my other storyline is the Phillies starting rotation in general. I think they're going to be ridiculously good. Zach Wheeler is ace, top tier, number one, no doubt. And then 2 through 5 are all legit 2s and 3s on other rotations. I think that they're, barring injury, this could be, obviously the Phillies had the legendary rotation in 2011 where they had Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, Roy Oswalt, Cole Hamels, and then also Joe Blanton.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they'll be that good, because that rotation is ridiculous. But I think this one could be the best we've had since that time.
For sure.
Because you roll out Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Sanchez, and Jesus Luzardo. That's ridiculous. And the fact that there's 3 lefties is super unique, too. That's really a fun twist that a lot of teams don't have. So a big issue with the Phillies last year was we had a great 4, especially the first half of the year when Ranger was killing it. Second half, way worse. But 1 through 4 was awesome. And then we had either Taijuan Walker or a bullpen game every 5th day. And they didn't win a lot of those games. And they still won 95 games at the end of the year. So I think this year, when you have a full 5, the jump that's going to go from Jesus Luzardo starting every 5 games, the jump that'll happen going from Taijuan Walker starting every 5th game to Jesus Luzardo starting every 5th game should be pretty big. So I think that could get them multiple extra wins, regardless of what else happens with the team.
For sure.
I think that the win total, we'll get to that later, but I think the win total for this year should stay relatively similar to last year, just from that change from Walker to Luzardo.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that this year is probably going to be one of the best starting 5 that we've had, again, since 2011, in a long time. And I think another key point is, once we see a healthy Andrew Painter moving up there, obviously there was a lot of hype around him, and I feel like it's kind of died down a little bit just with his injury. But I'm really excited. Hopefully after the All-Star break, we'll get to see him moving into a pitching spot, whether that's starting in the pen or, working into the rotation if one of the guys is either not performing well or injured. I think that could be just adding another arm is so crucial.
Yeah.
Because literally anything can happen at any time. And if you have another, even like a sixth arm that you really trust to start a game, like that just gives you so much flexibility. And it allows you, like, if you're doing really well towards the end of the season and you just need a fifth arm that's not Wheeler, it allows you to give Wheeler a little bit of rest, let him get some reps still, but you can still let him rest up a little bit for the playoffs. And I think that is really important because that's definitely one of the biggest things heading into the playoffs is just you played in a 162 game season. That's a lot of games. But if you can give some of those like top tier, unmatched level guys a little bit of rest before you head into the playoffs, it definitely makes all the difference.
Yeah, that going into a 6-man rotation for like the last month of the year to keep the top guys fresh going into the playoffs would be such a huge luxury if you're able to do that. That being said, they did that last year where they tried to save Nolan Wheeler's arms, and then it was the bullpen that was the issue anyway. So who knows how effective that is? But in theory, it seems like a good thing to do that's helpful, as long as you don't get lit up by the Mets. I would also love it if, for the playoffs, if Painter can be an Orion Kerkering in 2023 esque, like, oh, here's this rookie that none of these hitters have seen before, and he's just a weapon in the postseason as like this wild card. That would be really fun to watch hitters try to figure out Andrew Painter coming in throwing 98-mile-an-hour fastballs. So yeah, those are some storylines for you guys to keep an eye on going into the season, jump to some early conclusions, and then through the season actually see what ends up happening. So yeah, X factors I think is a fun thing to talk about at the beginning of the year because there's no real way to measure it. You just say somebody's an X factor and then like you kind of judge their performance. But I think I have 3 X factors for the Phillies. I didn't ask you before how many you have, but I'll throw out one of mine right away. Trey Turner. I don't love that he's an X factor because they signed Trey Turner to be a lot better than he has been. Unfortunately, he's been good, but they signed him to be great, and he hasn't been great. So if Trey Turner is able to play this year to the level that the Phillies signed him to play, that would be massive. And I hope that it seems like it's trending towards they'll be batting him leadoff. Maybe something with the mentality switch of being the 2-hitter versus leadoff hitter helps him out. The defense, I've kind of lost hope that his defense is going to improve. I don't think he's going to be a good defensive shortstop. So it's really just at the plate. If Trey Turner is better than he has been, or at least more consistent, but overall, if he's better, that's going to be a huge boost for the Phillies.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think an important X factor heading to the season is Alec Bohm. I think just with the way that things ended last year, a lot of rumors going around in the offseason that the Phillies didn't like him, that the front office wanted to get rid of him, that they were shopping him, like just a lot of different things. Like that's really got to mess with your head. And he's obviously coming back this season, and he's had his bright moments, but I think his ability to be consistent and really, really good this year, because I think he's got it. He's a talented third baseman. We've seen good things from him. He's a talented hitter. He's a power hitter. He can hit the ball really, really well at times, but he's been really inconsistent. And so I think that is going to be a big thing for him this year is can he maintain consistency and can he not get in his head when he is in a slump? Can he get out of that slump, especially in September and October? Like that's when it hit last year, like September, October, and he just was not. I mean, after the All-Star break, he just wasn't the same. But like, can he get out of his head and can he be the Alec Bohm that we saw pre-All-Star break last year? Because that Alec Bohm, if we have that Alec Bohm alongside the rest of the guys on this team, I mean, goodness gracious, the league better watch out.
Yeah, dude, Bohm and Suarez, the first half of last year, were both so amazing. And it was like, yeah, the young guy is stepping up. And then the second half, not good for either of them. And it was a big part of why the Phillies went 500 after the All-Star break. despite an amazing first half.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If Bohm can literally just be first half Bohm from last year all year this year, that would be incredible. I
Absolutely.
my other X factor, the other young Phillies infielder, Bryson Stott.
Yeah.
He definitely had a sophomore slump last year, which is normal. He was also injured slightly and played through it, according to him. He, um, yeah, just had some tweaks that he didn't feel 100%. So hopefully this year, being 100%, some slight improvement from Stott, kind of like Rojas, just like bolstering that bottom third of the lineup. If Stott can be even just incrementally better, he's been great on defense. If his hitting can just improve slightly, I think that'll be another huge boost to the lineup as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'll do one more and then you can do your third one, unless I steal your third one. Um, and then maybe you could think of something else. I don't know. But I don't know if I can put a specific person to this X factor as much as I can just say a third outfielder.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's good.
so
Yeah.
maybe saying Max Kepler, if that's it, it's going to be him, or if Johan can hit. Like, that is one thing that I feel was just the biggest inconsistency last year was, can we have an outfield rotation that can also hit the ball? Like,
Mhm.
there was so much moving around last year in the outfield between, calling guys up to having Hayes out there to Marsh or Johan, or literally just like Stevenson was in there for a little bit, or literally just like so many different players that played outfield last year that just moved around. And I think that inconsistency hurt the team rather
Mhm.
than helped it. I know they were just trying to find a solution for, finding another outfielder that could, play outfield well and also hit the ball. And maybe that'll be Kepler this year. Maybe Kepler will be that X factor that allows us to have um, a really solid bat in the lineup that also can be a really good outfielder, or even just like a good outfielder. They don't even need to be like really good, just like a good outfielder, um, and just add that consistency to the team and to the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have loved to see Weston Wilson get a
Mm,
shot alongside Johan and Kepler.
yeah.
Unfortunately, he's going to be out for 6 weeks, so that sucks that he's going to lose that bench spot at least to start the year, and then obviously he can come back. But yeah, I think that would have been a really good opportunity because he's been very good in the chances that he's had. I think he would have been really good competition for Johan and Kepler, but yeah, someone stepping up into that role is going to be big. And then my last X factor is Jordan Romano. I think you pronounce his name
Mm,
Romano. I've heard some people say Romano. I don't know.
mm,
We'll find out if that's correct or
yeah.
not later in the season. But Jordan Romano, the Phillies had more losses to the bullpen than they did additions, and Romano was the big addition. So
Yeah.
if the bullpen is going to stay solid, they're going to need him to be good, and that's that's basically the core of the X factor. Is that he's going to play a key role, probably as our third best reliever. They'll probably have him, yeah, seventh, eighth inning. He's a former closer, so like when he's at his peak, he can be great. It's just he's coming off of injury. You probably don't have him above Strom, Kirkering, maybe even Alvarado. He could be the fourth reliever. But
Yeah.
yeah, in that 3-4 range, if he can be even close to what he used to be, then will be great. That having what all-star Jordan Romano was a couple years ago,
Yeah.
that's amazing to have as your third, fourth reliever. So him
Absolutely.
helping stabilize our bullpen would be huge if he's able to. And I think the bullpen
Yeah.
is the biggest question mark on the team.
I totally agree. I think that's a big thing um, for this season. Like, clearly last season, the playoffs, the bullpen was definitely a big part of the issue, that alongside the hitting. Um, so when you can't pitch and when you can't hit, you're not going to win games. And so I think that definitely is a big question mark going into this season. And if Jordan Romano, I can't speak. If Romano can like be that third, fourth reliever that you were talking about, like, I think that's a really good spot to be in. especially if he can return to his all-star self. I think that adds a lot of, having one more arm for the bullpen just adds a lot more depth that you don't,
Mhm.
that we didn't necessarily have last year when you threw five different guys in there, but each of them could barely throw an inning and just gave up runs. Like, yeah, I think just having that consistency and that depth adds a lot to the team.
Yeah. All right, we've been at this for a half hour, so that means let's get into the predictions. I'm sure the reason why
Yep.
a lot of people are here. This is what it's all about for the Phillies. We can talk about all these extra things during the regular season, but it's all going to be, unfortunately, judged on what's the outcome at the end of the year. What do you end up winning or losing, and how does it happen? Or not even how does it happen? Literally, just what's the outcome. That's all we care about is the bottom line in the end. So I'll keep my expectations pretty short. I brought this shirt for this show because I want to carry the championship mentality from the Eagles to the Phillies. They're not the favorites because the Dodgers are one of the most ridiculously loaded teams we've ever seen, but they're a top 5 MLB roster, and the expectation is win a World Series.
Yeah, I'm going to be right there with you. The Phillies are winning it all this year. If I can predict the Eagles correctly, I can also predict the Phillies correctly.
Okay, so that's your prediction is that will happen.
The Phillies will beat the Yankees in Game 7 of the 2025 World Series.
Game 7. Wow. Okay, I love how you said that all concisely in one line so that I can clip it nice and easily.
Exactly.
That was perfect. Thank you for that. Editor Owen appreciates that. I was thinking about going Yankees, but they've had so many injuries in spring training that it's worrying me. I still think that their roster is really good, but like they're probably going to come out slow because they've been like decimated. Literally just the other day, Giancarlo Stanton is like, "Oh yeah, I might have season-ending elbow surgery," and that's just that scared me off for a preseason prediction. They could end up being fine. I think the Yankees are a really good roster. Just I'm a little scared in a preseason prediction with the way they're looking right now. That could change, but so I was gonna go Yankees. I've pivoted off of that. I think the Cleveland Indians are a really good sleep. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, and you have to be politically correct. Come on.
Rewind. I think the Cleveland Guardians are a really good sleeper in the AL, and they're not even that much of a sleeper. Maybe to like a casual baseball fan, they could be, but like they had a great series against the Yankees
absolutely
last year. They're not really that much of a sleeper. Just it's Cleveland, and so they get kind of overlooked. But I think the Guardians are going to have a really good team. Getting Shane Bieber back this year, I think they could have a good run through the AL. And the AL isn't as strong as the NL for like overall prediction context. The NL is really good this year. So making it to the World Series would be an incredible like accomplishment. If the Phillies get to the World Series, we're going to be feeling good because they'll have probably gone through a gauntlet to get there.
I mean, if we get to the World Series, we will probably have faced the Braves and or the Mets and or the Dodgers. Well, I feel like it's going to be
minimum.
I don't know. It'll be depending on how it seeds out, but like we're going to have to face teams like the Mets, Braves, Dodgers, Padres up there. If they're any good this year.
Yeah. We did these predictions kind of reverse order here. I just realized, but who knows? Maybe that gets people's attention and they stay for our explanation of why we're trying things out. Divisionally, I think the Braves are going to come back with a vengeance this year. I think the Braves win the division. Agreed. 98 to 100 wins for the Braves. I think the Phillies have basically the same record as last year, mid-90s. They keep it close with the Braves. Don't win the division. So I would say, very similar last year, 94 to 96 wins. The Mets, I think, make the playoffs, but I don't think they're as scary as the Phillies or the Braves are. So I'll give them like 90. 3 90-win teams in the division is crazy.
Yeah.
So the Marlins are going to get eaten alive this year. It might honestly be whoever beats the Marlins the most probably has the best shot at winning the division. If you let the Marlins beat you too much, you're in trouble. And then probably the Brewers. There's going to be one central team. Let's just say the Brewers. And then the Dodgers, Padres, and Diamondbacks are fighting in the West. Dodgers probably win the division. So then it's down to the Diamondbacks and Padres for the last spot. So very similar teams, like not really new teams from last year in the NL. And then, yeah.
I mean, I think all three of those teams in the East, Braves, Mets, and Phillies, I think they're all making the playoffs. I don't have a doubt about that. I mean, unless something goes horribly wrong for one of those teams, they're all good enough to make the playoffs. I agree with you, your call on that. And as much as I would love to see the Phillies win the division, ultimately I agree. I think the Braves are coming back. I think they're going to have a 100+ win season. Mets and Phillies, I agree with both those predictions. Mid 90s, low 90s for both teams, I think. Yeah. I think both teams will be mid to low 90s. Hopefully Phillies are higher, mid to low 90s than the Mets. But I think they'll both be in the 90s. They'll both make the playoffs. And I mean, everything else you said, I pretty much agree with. I feel like the NL is relatively cut and dry of who's going to be good and who won't be good. So,
yeah, the Cubs could be a sneaky team. The Giants maybe, and that. Yeah, that's it. There's not a ton of wiggle room, especially compared to the AL. So yeah, it's going to be a gauntlet for sure, especially if you don't win the division because you don't get the bye. But again, we don't know what to think of the bye now because that hasn't helped a lot of teams. So I don't even know what to think of that. If I want the bye or not, I don't know. And NL East matchups, whoever had the worst record in the regular season seems to win just over the past 3 years. So I don't know what that means. But yeah, they'll probably have to win 3 series to get to the World Series, meaning they'll have to beat Padres or Mets probably, and then Braves or Dodgers, and then Braves or Dodgers in the division championship, which it's going to be a crazy run they'll have to go on. Because this is probably going to be the most stacked NL field. The last 3 years, there's been they played the Marlins in the first round of 2023. That's not that hard at all. They played.
I mean, even
they got to play 2022. They got to play the Padres in the NLCS because they took out the Dodgers for us. Every year, there's been some easier matchup. This year,
I mean, the Cardinals a couple years ago, that was also a relatively easy matchup.
Yeah, well, Phillies were supposed to lose that, but they managed to win.
Phillies were supposed to lose in every round of the playoffs, though.
True. Of the ones, the Cardinals were easier. So, yeah, it's gonna be a absolutely loaded field. But yeah, I've Phillies versus Guardians, and I think the Phillies win it. Again, when we talk about the bias here, we are supposed to be biased. We're all Philly all the time. We're going to be a little bit biased.
We are going to be biased, yeah.
I know that it's logically more likely that the Dodgers win or the Braves win, even. Their odds are better. But if everything breaks right for the Phillies, they are a World Series level team. Their ceiling is World Series. So I'm picking the Phillies ceiling. At their best, they can beat anybody.
And you see, stacked teams can crumble if things baseball is such a sport where it's such a bipolar thing of you can have a stacked team not perform and they're gonna lose, and you can have a really a not an okay team step up and play really, really well. And it's just one of those things where do you really feel like anything can happen? And obviously it being a 9-inning game and multiple games in a series, usually the better team will come out on top. But guys hit slumps, pitchers can't throw strikes. It's such a mental sport that if things just start to go wrong, it can trigger a landslide of just it losing. And so I think that's the mental aspect of the game, and it's such a mental sport in that sense that it's yeah, it could really go either way when it comes down to which team is going to perform, which team is going to outwit the other team, and just like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My last thing is related to that. I just finished, I was going to say reading. Question: does it count as reading a
No,
book
the answer is
if
no.
you
If you
listen
listen to
to
an
an
audiobook,
audiobook?
no, that's not reading.
You were right away.
I knew exactly what you were going to say. That's not reading. I remember I
Okay.
was talking to my brother a few weeks ago, and he's like, Luke, guess what? He's just like, I read all these books, and he's never been like a huge reader. And I know we always complained about it growing up. And so I was like, oh, buddy, that's awesome. I'm so glad that, you're kind of getting back into reading. It's really good for like, it's better to read than play video games or scroll. And he's like, I don't know what I was, yeah. He's like, yeah, the audiobooks have been like super fun to listen to. I was like,
Whoa.
audiobooks. I mean, it's still better than like just watching YouTube, I guess, or like scrolling on its social media or like playing video games. It's still better to read. But I would say audiobooks don't have the same benefit as reading a physical book. But I think, I don't fault you for listening to audio. I don't think it's bad to listen to audiobooks. I still think
Yeah,
audiobooks are a
yeah.
really good way, especially with, I assume you read it when you're commuting or you get it read to you while you're commuting to work.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's good because it's like, if you have a long commute, it's better than just listening to music for an hour each way. I'm sure that gets old. And so like audiobooks or podcasts are a really good way to like fill the time.
Yeah, I've been living on them. So yeah, I think you're right. The reading, you do like retain information more than listening, but I like listening. I've enjoyed the audiobooks. Anyway, um
Sorry, I just want to say one more thing before you continue with this
oh
book.
boy.
I th- like I think audiobooks are good, and I agree. If you're driving, don't read. Listen to an audiobook. But like I think what I think is really stupid, which is what my brother would do, he would lay in bed and listen to the audiobook. Like, if
Oh,
you're gonna
that
lay in
seems like
bed,
the
just
best
read the
way to get the
no
information. If you're busy doing something else, then your brain is focused on two things at once. He's focused on the
at
book.
at that point, just read the book. At that point,
I,
read. Don't listen.
I guess, but like if you like listening, if you feel like you're a more like auditory learner, like I understand scientifically you do retain more information reading, but I feel like my attention span is kept longer with listening. Like my endurance is better. If I'm sitting there reading, like I eventually if it like after an hour, like I eventually start to kind of like lose focus. But listening, the audiobook reader is locked in. So like I'm listening to them because they keep going. So
I
that's
don't know.
that
We
would be
can have
my
this is
only
a
case
debate
for
for
it.
another day. I guess
Yeah.
Parker has to break the tie.
Oh yes, that we'll start the next time Parker's on. We'll be like
Unfortunately,
intro
I
question.
feel like my prediction is that he'll take your side, but I don't know. Parker does like reading, so maybe he'll take my side.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on whatever mood he's in. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was listening to Moneyball. Which
Okay.
fantastic book. This
Yeah.
past week I listened to the whole thing through. Really, really good. Had a bunch of thoughts from it. Awesome. Any baseball fan, highly recommend listening to or reading Moneyball. My dad said the movie's not as good, but you can watch the movie too if you want. Anyway, fascinating book. And if for those of you who don't know, Moneyball is about the Oakland A's in the late 90s, early 2000s, specifically, run by Billy Beane. More specifically, it's about the 2002 season where they had just lost a bunch of stars. That's about how their GM, Billy Beane, had the lowest budget in the majors, and he managed to build consistently these great teams on a smaller budget, and it was really impressive. Anyway, so it talks a lot about numbers because they used a very cutting-edge analytical take on baseball that hadn't been done before then. It was all very subjective, and they took numbers, hard numbers to it. Anyway, those A's teams never won a World Series. They won 100 games multiple times in the regular season. They, beat the odds in so many ways, but they were never able to beat the playoff odds. And the end of the book, they talked about that because in 2002, the A's lose in the first round of the playoffs in 5 games. Sad, obviously. They had won 103 games and then lost first round. and they're talking about not even the emotions of it, just the numbers of it. Of the MLB playoffs are a roll of the dice in such a small sample size. It's really hard to just get lucky enough. And obviously, some teams are better than others, and like, yes, there's skill involved, but a large percentage of it is luck and timing. And I think we kind of forget that sometimes.
Yeah. Especially when the entire season is judged over an 162 game stretch, and that's
such a large sample size.
162 games is how you're determining how good a team is. If you picked, you could pick so many different variations of 5 to 7 game stretches of those 162 games and look at teams and be like, wow, the Phillies went 1-5 against, this team
any
here.
Team. Literally any team.
They went, 7 for 7 against another team here. And like, it's just so, it is such a small sample size. And I guess you can like say the same thing for football. It's just one game. Or basketball, relatively speaking, it's a small sample size compared to a whole season of games. But like, especially with baseball, because of how many games it is, like, it's so hard to gauge how good a team is in a small sample size when you're looking at such a large sample. I think I never thought of it that way, but that's a really good point.
So yeah, that kind of, I think, helped my perspective. Not to make excuses. Obviously, like, the players would never use that as an excuse of like, the other team got lucky. Like, they're never going to say that. But just strictly, logically, mathematically, there is a ton of luck involved in playoff baseball with, the multitude of different things that can happen in a small sample size. So I just kind of wanted that to be a message for Phillies fans. Like, the fact that they keep getting to the playoffs is great. So let's just enjoy this team. They keep giving themselves shots at it. And eventually we're hoping that one of those shots is going to hit. Like, they keep giving themselves dice roll attempts, basically. Yeah. And so every new attempt they get, there's still a chance.
For sure.
So because I've seen some people being like, we're running this same team back, like the same thing's gonna happen. I'm like, no. I came into this earlier this week. I was looking at the Philly stats from last year, trying to figure out, okay, what can they do better that could like change this and like give them a better shot. They were top 5 in so many offensive statistics. They improved their pitching. Taijuan Walker was like the one weakness we talked about. They brought in Jesus Luzardo. Like, they're such a good team, and they've just randomly had bad stretches of games.
A few
in the
not
playoffs.
Good games, yeah.
Like, against the Astros, they hit a World Series record number of home runs, and then they got no hit. Stuff like that. The Diamondbacks, they're up 3-2. Bats go cold. Mets, the whole series was just awful. Like, it just happens. Like, there's nothing that I see that the front office can do better, really, logically. So it's just, this is the best we've got, and we're going to see if it breaks right. Which is kind of I don't know if that's a happy or sad thing. Like, it relieves a lot of pressure, but it's also, like, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. It does suck to think that way because it's like, all right, well, there's nothing that we can think about really that'll make it different. But I think that ultimately is what it is. Like, we have a really, really good team that is capable of beating any team in the league. It really is just how the dice roll, how the cards fall, whatever you want to say. Like,
So I'm trying to hang on to that. I'm trying to hang on to that feeling because, like we said at the beginning, the window's closing, and so I want to enjoy the window as much as I can. Like, it's so fun to go into a season with a baseball team that is loaded. We have a loaded team. Yeah, that's awesome. We do. And I hope that they can win a World Series. So
this is kind of unrelated to what we were talking about. It's about the Phillies though. So I was watching this video earlier today, and it was like, man, it was like the caption was like, this just makes you ready for baseball season. And it was Phillies versus Cubs, and the Phillies were wearing their powder blues. And in my mind, I start watching this, I was like, oh, this is where Harper hits the walk-off. And it actually, because bases were loaded when the video started, it was the bottom of the ninth. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. And it wasn't that. It was a game in 2022 where the Phillies had like a crazy comeback. They were losing like 6-1 to the Cubs, and they ended up coming back, and Bryson Stott walked it off with a home run. and I was like, "Oh, I kind of remember that game now." But I was just reading some of the comments, and it just blew my mind. The Harper walk-off grand slam against the Cubs was in 2019. That was 6 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday. I like just the fact that that was in 2019 and that was 6 years ago absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, does
Are
that
we
not
getting
blow your
old?
mind? I think
Yeah.
we are, because if you would have said that I was like, what would I have been? 6 years ago, I was 14 years old when that
2019.
happened. I would have said, "You're crazy."
Yeah, we had like just started the podcast when that happened, probably, because that would have been like midsummer 2019.
Yeah.
Beginning of the summer 2019, we started the podcast. That's crazy. I don't know if I liked knowing that.
Yeah, I know. That's it just blew
Wow.
my mind earlier. Like, wow, we are old.
Yeah. And that's it. Just I want Bryce Harper to have a world. He deserves it, man. And not that the other guys don't. Obviously they've all given so much for Philadelphia, but man, for Bryce
Zach
Harper to have a
Wheeler
World
too.
Series would be
Zach Wheeler and
iconic.
Aaron Nola too. Just like,
Nola being the longest tenured. Yeah, Nola's my
for
favorite
sure.
player. So I
Yeah,
want Nola.
Nola being
Yeah,
the longest tenured, and
yeah.
Wheeler the amount of like
He's been so
amazingness he's brought
good.
us over the last couple of years. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
they both
everyone
deserve
else
it
has
too.
had like a bad playoff moment, whether it's a hitter having a slump or a defender making a mistake or a pitcher having a blow up start. Zach Wheeler has not had one time that he's let us
Nope.
down in the playoffs.
He has been
It's
the one
incredible.
consistency. It's been amazing. Even the moments when, like, I don't remember if this was last year or 2 years ago, but like he struggled a little bit towards the end of the season. I feel like maybe I'm
Yeah,
thinking of
maybe
somebody else.
it was
I don't
a
know.
struggle for Zach
I feel
Wheeler.
like there was, yeah, struggled for Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, yeah.
I just feel like there was a moment where we were kind of questioning Wheeler going into the
Hmm.
playoffs, and then he just lit up. I feel like that
Just
happened at some point, but I don't know. I could be going crazy.
I think
And again,
that was
struggled for
last year.
Zach
Yeah,
Yeah. I think struggled for Zach Wheeler is also a lot different than struggling. Zach Wheeler is still better than most guys. So
yeah, yeah. And then he came in and absolutely shut down the Mets.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
they lost anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Wheeler shut down the Mets, but nobody else could.
yeah, exactly.
Or what would happen is Wheeler would shut down the Mets, and the bullpen would give up the game.
Yeah, which is what happened. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So yeah, that's the Phillies 2025 preview. Obviously, we're huge Phillies fans. We'll be talking about them all throughout the season, but this is to set the stage for a new season. Phillies hype video will be coming out at some point before the season.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
I don't have a date for you guys, but that was our top viewed video for, I don't know, probably like 9 months. That video took off at the beginning of last baseball season and was our top spot until the Eagles playoff hype video took it over. So
Yeah.
high hopes for that one. People
For
liked
sure.
it before, so that'll be out sometime before opening day. So within the next couple weeks, keep an eye out for that one.
Yep.
Comment what you guys think about the Phillies season. I kind of hate that I listened to Money. I love and hate that I listened to Moneyball right before this, because I like the logicalness of it. That like brings me some peace of like, hey, the playoffs are random. But the fan in me doesn't want it to be that way. It's like I want it to be like we have a good team and so we're gonna win. But it's not always realistically how it works. So comment what you guys think will happen this year with the Phillies, what your storylines are that you're looking for, your X factors, all the things that we talked about. As always, like, subscribe, share this with a friend who's a Phillies fan who you think would be interested in this. Maybe send it to a Phillies fan of yours who complains about the Phillies a lot. I think that they could use our content throughout the season to kind of help them out. Be positive. Maybe don't say that to them. Be like, hey, you need to be more positive about the Phillies. Just kind of, send this their way and see what happens with it. So, yeah, thank you for doing this, Luke. You represented the Phillies better than I did. I wanted the championship, but you, as always, came decked out in Phillies stuff. I would expect nothing less. So,
good.
Yeah, I'm going to be very busy this summer with the Iron Pigs, but we're going to do our best. I'm really excited to watch the Phillies together this year.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Go Phillies, and we will see you next time.